I think the Philippines should be proud of the 2019 Southeast Asia Games. About a week before the opening ceremony for the 2019 Southeast Asia Games, we got a lot of news stories showing athletes from other countries stuck at the airport, halal foods not being served to Muslim delegates, and the general disorganization of things, and even criticisms of the logo itself, right? And then we saw the opening ceremony. It was gorgeous, to say the least. Manny Pacquiao was there. It was a really, really beautiful display. There was like drones in the sky, like showing messages and things. It was pretty incredible. It seemed that all the controversy from before dissipated overnight, and then the games got off to a roaring start. Most of the criticisms of the games were isolated to a few teams being stuck at the airport, some food not being served, and facilities not really being complete yet. Oh yeah, and the logo. While I do think that it is important that people do speak up when they see something wrong, I also think that Filipinos should be proud of the Southeast Asia Games, and I don't think it should really be bashed anymore on social media. I think you should be proud of it for a couple of reasons. First, it's a big burden to host something like the Southeast Asia Games. Many countries around the world do not want to host the Olympics, let's say, because of the huge burden that goes into building the facilities, building the village that all the athletes should stay in. I mean, it's a huge undertaking. You should take a look at the facilities from Rio, who hosted, the 2016 Olympics. Like, those facilities that they built way back when, they're completely destroyed now and run down. It's actually quite depressing. There wasn't an absence of controversy either in Rio. There were sanitation issues, there was crime issues, there was political instability. Security was a problem. The Zika virus running wild was also a problem back then, if you remember. And the infrastructure in Rio was severely behind schedule. So facilities not being ready at the time of the games isn't necessarily an uncommon thing. In fact, a lot of the controversies that you would see in Rio compared to the controversies that you saw here in the Philippines, it's not even close, really. The Philippines really had just some minor issues compared to the monstrosity of problems that Rio was facing. Another interesting fact was the Philippines spent $118 million on these games. A lot of that money went to building a brand new facility in Clark, along with a new village to house the athletes to make sure that they're all comfortable. And they featured 57 sports, which is 20 more than any of the past 29 SEA Games has ever featured before. A lot of Filipinos were actually concerned that there was maybe some corruption happening, but I looked at the budget for the past 5 Southeast Asia Games and I found some pretty stunning insights. The Philippines actually spent the second least out of any of the past 5 countries. In fact, Indonesia spent over $300 million in 2011, and Myanmar spent over $294 million in 2013. This is actually a good thing. You might look at this and say, oh, the Philippines isn't spending enough. I actually think this is a good thing. I checked, and there was not a lot of transparency in the numbers of Myanmar's budget for the Southeast Asia Games in 2013. They spent $294 million, and they never told any of the press where that money was going to. In Indonesia, there was actually proof that there was some corruption happening. Indonesia's Democratic Party treasurer actually accepted $3 million in bribes relating to tenders for the construction of the athletic village. It seems like the bigger the budget, the more room there is for corruption, because you can't possibly account for all that money. So Philippines having a smaller budget is actually a pretty good thing. Think about this way too. The Philippines spent less money to put on 20 more games than any of the past 29 Southeast Asia Games. That's pretty amazing. They're pretty efficient with the money. Now finally, it's time to talk about the athletes, because the athletes balled out. They've already clinched victory in terms of the medal count, and several amazing news stories have come out already, like the story of that Filipino surfer who saved the Indonesian surfer's life when he could have just went on with his routine and won a gold medal. There's also been a lot of support for Timor-Leste on social media that I'm seeing from Filipinos. They're rooting for them because they didn't really have many medals, and then when they finally won a bronze medal, everyone was super, super happy for them. I think that it's really easy to come out and dwell on the negatives when everybody else is doing it, but I also think that the Philippines does a good job of rallying behind their athletes, rallying behind the good things that their country does. And I think that for the Southeast Asia Games, they should really be proud of what their government did to put on the games, what new facilities they built. Yes, there were some mistakes made, but when you're putting on something as big as, an Olympic-style organization of games, there's going to be problems. So be proud of the Southeast Asia Games, enjoy them, and congratulations for winning 2019 Southeast Asia Games, Philippines. Time out. Okay.